It's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. It's been a slow week on the podcast, and sometimes I say that. And whenever I say that, then I say, but business is about to pick up on the other end of the line. Ben Axelrod, how's it going, man?
It's going great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So I know who you are, but I don't know who you are. I have no idea where you came from. All of a sudden, you know, through Twitter and whatever else, I'm aware of a Columbus and sports personality named Ben Axelrod. So for those who don't know who you are, identify yourself.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up in Dublin, Ohio, just outside of Columbus, I guess. And then I went to Ohio State, and I went to school not really knowing what I was going to do, and somehow wound up in journalism and wound up covering the Buckeyes from there, and graduated Ohio State in 2011 and kind of bounced around. I worked at the Rivals site, Buckeye Grove. I worked at the Scout site, Buckeye Sports Bulletin. I interned for the Ozone. So kind of bounced around the Ohio State beat as I kind of got my career under me here. And then BleacherReport.com, as they kind of expanded and legitimized their coverage and were looking to hire people to cover things in person. They hired me about a year ago now. They hired me last July. So I've been at Bleacher Report for the past year. Now I'm covering all of the Big Ten, but I'm a huge Cleveland sports fan, and that's probably how I wound up in your Twitter sphere, probably through Zach Jackson or Andre Knott or someone like that. I don't really hide my feelings when it comes to Cleveland sports. My dad's from Akron, so I've kind of had that in my blood my entire life. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the short story.
So the whole legitimization of Bleacher Report, that's been like what, 2 or 3 years now?
Yeah, I think they hired Howard Beck from the New York Times about a year and a half ago, and I think that was like their big hire around the same time they hired Ethan Skolnick and Mike Freeman. So it was before they got around to me. When they hired me, they were looking to hire college beat writers. They were looking for an Ohio State, an Alabama, and a Notre Dame writer. And I wound up being the Ohio State writer, obviously. But yeah, it's kind of an ongoing process, and I think it's going pretty well. I don't really think, obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I don't feel like Bleacher Report is kind of met with the same looks that it probably was just a year ago even.
No, it's a weird time in media overall. And we've seen this weird convergence where everybody is everything to everybody, or everybody's trying to be everything to everybody. And that includes the rest of the media kind of embracing some of the things that maybe they criticized about Bleacher Report initially, and Bleacher Report kind of eschewing some of those things and going a little more legit, but everybody's kind of met in this middle ground. I'm curious to see where the shakeout's going to happen. I don't expect you to have an answer for that, but do you agree? Do you think, like I do, that there's eventually going to be even more consolidation and a bigger shakeout?
Yeah, I do. I think it's interesting if you look at like Cleveland.com, obviously they're kind of the big one, at least in our area, that's kind of moving towards that cover everything at every time model, or are they Advance, I think, is their parent company.
Right, or NEOMG.
That's right. Yeah, that's technically what they are. I mean, that's their real company now, but so they kind of did it backwards, or Bleacher Report did it backwards. Bleacher Report started with obviously the clickbaity stuff, and now they're legitimizing. And I think like a company like Cleveland.com started with a lot of quality work, and now they're adding a lot of the clickbaity content. I think you're right. I think there's going to have to be some sort of middle ground, and it's definitely an interesting time in the media landscape.
And I wasn't going to start here, but I don't think there's a better place to start than what the Cavaliers went through today with their little skit that has gone viral in a bad way about domestic violence. But the point that I think that we should probably discuss is the fact that, you expect SB Nation and Deadspin and places like that to cover it, but it was being pointed out to me from places like Salon.com and Huffington Post and TMZ, and I mean, there's no place where anything goes uncovered nowadays.
No, not at all. I mean, even you look at this, the Cardale Jones Joakim Noah beef that might not have even been real beef. I mean, I still, the only thing that I've seen with credibility saying that Joakim Noah said anything to Cardale Jones was from Anthony Lima, and
he's a shit starter, that guy.
Exactly. I mean, I think some people. I was talking to somebody on Twitter earlier today, and they thought it was a boy who cried wolf situation, where we still don't know if it's a real thing that happened, and I haven't talked to Anthony about it at all. But yeah, I mean that got covered by just about everyone today too. It's definitely, and I think that was Cleveland.com's like most read story today was what Cardale Jones tweeted to Joakim Noah this morning, which I don't think is something you would have seen a year ago.
No. Well, let's go back to the Cavs thing, because obviously I don't think anybody at this point is going to try and say that it wasn't ill-advised, but it just seems to me that like the amount of coverage that it got was like pretty overwhelming for the fact that it was a failed joke.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was watching, I had Around the Horn on in the background as I was writing today, and they brought that up, and all of the four people on the panel agreed that it was a bad idea, which you don't really see anybody on Around the Horn. Typically, you don't have all four of them agree on anything. So, yeah, it was just, I mean, yeah, it was very, very tone deaf, and I think especially with everything we went through with Floyd Mayweather last week, obviously it's back in the public eye, and I guess Lyle Collins to a lesser degree, but yeah, it was just a tone-deaf skit. It was stupid. So was their idea to pass out arm slings for Kevin Love. So
sure.
I'm not really sure what's going on behind the scenes up there with the Cavs, but I agree. The amount of attention and also to a degree, that's also the power of LeBron, isn't it? I mean, if it's the Memphis Grizzlies who do this, does it get nearly as much attention? I don't know.
Well, but let's talk about the equivalency. You know, everybody wants to lump everything into the same environment. I would argue that Floyd Mayweather is real, and Ray Rice, that's real. Those are real scenarios with real situations. I do get a little bit tired, and it makes me wonder. Like, I don't want to lump myself in with the people who cry about the PC police, because I certainly don't fall into that category. But at the same time, who did the Cavaliers apologize to? Who accepted their apology today? That's the question that I'm kind of left asking. And I'm not saying that it was a good idea, and I'm saying they probably should have apologized. But the amount of attention or excitement surrounding an issue that was just like a really stupid joke just seemed phenomenal to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even for me on the other side of the spectrum, I understand the Floyd Mayweather thing. It was real and it's terrible, and he's done some terrible things in his past, but it kind of bothered me how that dominated the conversation of the fight last week. It felt like grandstanding a little bit. I mean, this isn't recent stuff with him. This is stuff that's been public for quite some time. He went to jail just a few years ago. I agree. I don't like to cry about the PC police, and I think that's a different conversation with Floyd Mayweather, but that's kind of the corner the Cavs were backed into, I guess, today. I think in the apology, they specified victims of domestic violence. It wasn't a situation of we're sorry if we offended anybody. But I mean, it wasn't anything really. I mean, it wasn't even advocating domestic violence. Obviously, you're right. It was just a stupid spoof, and I also think they probably thought that commercial was more well known than it really was. I wasn't aware of that commercial until today.
Yeah, well, and I wasn't really aware of it either, but the thing that it reminded me of was that, do you remember the guy who put his girlfriend in WWE moves and, like, powerbombed her into the pool?
Yeah.
That's the thing that I kept being reminded of, and I was like, well, everyone thought that was funny. Is it a matter of execution? Because obviously the Cavaliers, their whatever their skit kind of failed in execution, I guess. But I got to admit, I don't really remember it. I was at the game last night. I don't really remember it, but I makes me want to go back in time and figure out if people laughed. Was it funny?
I didn't see it. I mean, I saw the YouTube clip today.
Yeah.
I didn't think the skit was no. I didn't think it was funny. But the cat. I don't know if you've seen like the Kevin Love bobblehead commercial night. Like,
Well, and I should clarify. I want to know, did it get a pop? Did it work?
for the crowd.
Yeah.
Well,
That's really what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't at the game, so I don't know. It didn't air on TV.
And I was at the game, and I don't know. So
yeah, I thought it just aired in the arena. It definitely didn't air on the TV.
No.
But I watched the TNT broadcast. I don't think there was a Fox Sports.
No, it only played in the arena.
Yeah. So I don't know if it got a pop or not. But, I mean, the only thing I saw was Ethan Skolnick had tweeted about it, and a bunch of people picked up on it. And then this morning, the video actually went up, and it's circulating around the blogs now. But, no, I mean, it wasn't very funny just from a pure comedy standpoint. I thought the kid doing the WWE moves on his girlfriend was much funnier. But, yeah, I think the Cavs just – their marketing department doesn't seem like comedy is really their strong suit. If you see the commercials that play for the bobblehead nights, I know they did that 30 for 30 for LeBron's headband, which was pretty well done. But other than that, they just seem to be tone deaf from a comedy standpoint.
Well, and I've got to admit that I've been just really ill-tempered all day long because I woke up, I turned on the TV, I wanted to see some glowing stuff about the Cavaliers and how they took it to the Chicago and how the series is tied up and blah, blah, blah. And all I got all day long was Tom Brady and his deflated footballs.
Yeah.
They stole all the shine, all the sheen and lovely, flowery statements that could have been talked about the Cavaliers all day were gone.
Yeah, and I don't know if I guess like he's having some sort of press conference or media availability right now, and he's basically no commenting on everything. So, I mean, I'm guessing you are too. This whole Deflategate thing, other than Rob Gronkowski's Bleacher Report video, did you see that?
D's nuts.
Yeah, that's.
Did Bleacher Report bleep that out?
No, it's neither did ESPN today. They played it on, I think it was Around the Horn or Pardon the Interruption or the Lebitard show.
That's awesome.
I heard it bleeped out on the radio, but it wasn't bleeped out on TV.
That's great. It shouldn't be.
No, he's a professional wrestler waiting to happen. I mean, he has a career ahead of him outside of football.
I went through a little exercise just personally with the Tom Brady thing because – I try and not get too caught up in outrage, and I don't really love the Patriots. I went to school at Boston U, and so, I've got kind of an adversarial relationship with Boston teams and Boston fans anyway. So, but I went through an exercise with myself trying to figure out what I thought the appropriate penalty was. Have you done that? I'll tell you what I came up with, but have you done that?
No. Let me hear what you came up with.
All right, so I don't like Tom Brady. I don't like the Patriots. I respect them, whatever else. What they did wasn't as bad as Spygate. We got to put a gate at the end of everything. But it was definitely worse than what the Falcons did. I don't think that they should suspend Tom Brady individually, but I think the penalty should be worse than what the Falcons paid for the crowd noise thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I arrive.
Now, where does Ray Farmer texting down to the sideline fit into all this?
Below Atlanta piping in crowd noise.
Because Lebitard brought that up today, and he was wondering because these are all competitive advantages that these teams tried to get, and if it's the Patriots who do the texting, or if you just don't attach a team and you just say texting down to the sidelines. Piped in crowd noise or deflated footballs, which one is the worst?
Whichever one's attached to the Patriots because they won.
That's not a bad point. And I know it's the AFC title game that's attached to this, but and I only skimmed the Wells Report, or didn't even skim it. I just read the tweets, but it sounds like this was something that was going on the entire season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just so... I mean, sports are supposed to be fun, and this is so not fun.
Yeah, well, and here's a part of my my analysis was that, a lot of people want to try and pin it on Tom Brady, and I get that. I understand where that logic comes from, but it seems to me that this is more of a team-wide cultural thing, and so I don't think this is a suspend the individual kind of a thing. I think it's a suspend the team kind of a thing, in which case it's fining everybody and taking a draft pick or draft picks.
Yeah, draft picks seem to be the most logical conclusion that I kind of came up with in my head, and I thought it was a little curious that this all came out a week after the NFL draft. I didn't know if that had anything to do with the timing of all of this, but
well, the Falcons didn't get hit until next draft.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that doesn't really matter. I also thought there were so many times that you could have leaked this or presented it if you were the NFL. It seemed like they picked a time where they were going to get a ton of attention.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, they could have hit it last week with the fight and that the biggest Saturday in all of sports, or the biggest day in sports history on Saturday. I mean, they could have very easily.
Maybe they expected LeBron to carry over it.
Yeah, maybe. Apparently they bet wrong on that one. Or I mean, you could push it back to during the NBA Finals or sometime around there. It just seemed like this was another. This was right up there with the schedule release for the NFL in terms of making noise.
It was really hard for me to come to the conclusion that they should take draft picks from the Patriots, though, because I was firmly against draft picks being taken away from the Browns because, obviously we barely know Ray Farmer. We barely know Jimmy Haslam, and all this stuff would feel like it was just punishing the fans. I guess something about the amount of success and how established and long-standing the culture is in New England makes me feel much better about docking them draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, they got docked a first rounder for Spygate.
And I looked it up today, too. If they had not made the playoffs, they would have kept their first rounder and they would have given up their second and third.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that these are allegedly things, the videotaping and the doctoring of footballs that they claim that everybody else does, but they just happen to be the team that keeps getting caught.
Right. Well, and they're not going to catch a team that is at the bottom of their division and missing the playoffs 10, 12 years in a row.
Right.
So I guess that's part of it, too.
Yeah, that's true. What I still don't, from what I understood, did Quell Jackson record an interception and he noticed that the ball was flat, or did the Colts go into that game knowing that the balls were going to be flat?
So here, and this is part of the conspiracy. So the story came out about DeQuell Jackson and his interception, and then I believe DeQuell Jackson came out and said, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about. I intercepted the ball. I brought it back to the sidelines, and then the team grabbed it." So, and from what it appears today with the Wells report, this was all set up that they were going to try and get that ball. So they just used DeQuell as an excuse. He was kind of like the good guy Patsy.
Well, because that's what Tom Brady's agent kind of came out and accused the NFL today of, was performing a sting operation with the Colts, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I don't understand that. Like, you can't accuse somebody of performing a sting operation when they achieve their result.
Right.
So what's your point?
Right, you got caught.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm even talking about it. It drives me crazy. I'm so mad. The Cavs won. I'm concerned about the Cavs, though. I'm not concerned about them in this series, but the body language last night, they just, and maybe this is the end of every playoff game.
All Bill Simmons here.
What's that?
You're going all Bill Simmons here. Bill Simmons is the body language doctor.
Oh, well, mine is just based on fatigue.
Yeah.
They just looked, I mean, Kyrie looked almost a little bit lame, like a marathon runner finishing a marathon, but barely. Mm-hmm. And LeBron seemed like at the end of the game, he'd played 40 minutes or whatever he played, and there was a ball in the air and coming down for the rebound, and Joakim Noah started playing physical with LeBron, and he just kind of walked over the baseline, turned and looked over his shoulder condescendingly, and then they called timeout and they took him out of the game, and he just seemed so beaten down and worn out.
Yeah, I think LeBron was a little worried about that Shumpert injury. I don't know if you saw anything he said post game, but he kind of said, "Oh no, not again! Like we can't have this keep happening." And they showed on the broadcast he went over to Amon when Amon called to be pulled out of the game, and LeBron was trying to talk him into staying in the game, and Amon was like, "No, something popped. Like I have to go."
Oh man.
I yeah, I don't know because they got up so big so early. And sometimes, you just kind of coast from there. I don't really have a feel for how these next two games in Chicago are going to go. Like, I imagine that they're going to split there and come back to Cleveland. I can't imagine the Cavs winning this thing in 5 or the Bulls sweeping both of these next two games with as good as LeBron is actually on the road in the playoffs. But I don't see a team in the East beating them still just because I think the Cavs, even without Kevin Love and assuming Amon comes back sometime during the series, I think they still just are the best team in the East by pretty much a wide margin, especially with John Wall out of the playoffs now.
Yeah, and you might be right. Does this just go to show, and I'm in my article tomorrow, by the time people are listening to this, it'll be up. But, I mean, Kyrie Irving will, in the regular season, will have played 250 more minutes than he's ever played in the NBA. Through the first 6 games of this playoffs, he's played 241 more minutes. That's 10% more. Are we really at the point where the NBA is going to have to at some point recognize that they play too many games?
Oh, I think so. And one thing that I thought was interesting was you go back to that strike season, or not the strike season, the lockout season they had.
It was amazing.
Yeah, they started on Christmas Day. It seemed like the perfect fit of games. It was one of the best playoffs ever. Was that heading into the 2012 playoffs? Yeah. So, I mean, that was an amazing playoffs. Nobody put an asterisk next to the Heat's championship that year.
Oh, see, and I was going all the way back to the Spurs one in what, 08?
Oh, no.
I'm an old bastard.
In 99.
99, thank you.
Yeah.
I said 08. What am I talking about?
Yeah, I don't remember that one quite as well, but I remember the one just 3 years ago now. And
what are you, 20? How old
26.
are you? Oh, damn it. I'm 10 years older than you. You're making me feel old.
I feel old already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, especially look at LeBron. I mean, LeBron just turned 30. And you look at the miles that he's racked up on that body, especially when you take into account both the playoffs and the Olympics, and he's been doing this since he was 18 years old. I mean, you see guys primes come to a crashing halt like Tracy McGrady and Steve Francis and some of those guys. I mean, I think you're right. It's a little much.
Yeah. Well, and the idea, and I've talked about this with other people as well, is if you spread the games out, the only inventory you're reducing is the local cable deal. So the local cable deal will have fewer games. You can still fill all the ESPN, ABC, TNT inventory. You can even extend that if you want to have more national games. And if you have fewer games and fresher players, you could justify having more national games while still shortening the schedule. And it seems kind of short-sighted to keep it an 82-game schedule when we've seen all this shift from local dollars to national dollars.
But what about the tickets, the box office? Isn't that kind of the main concern with all this from the owner's standpoint?
Sure. I mean, it's a consideration, but at a certain point, quality beats quantity. Right. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that especially just, those teams I mentioned, John Wall's out of the playoffs now, and the Hawks are pretty banged up, and Chris Paul isn't playing. I mean, you don't want to get to a point where you're in your conference finals and you're missing, 3 of the bigger stars in the sport.
Well, and on top of that, in the regular season, I've always said that it's garbage. I understand why Popovich does it, or even why LeBron sits out games now in the regular season, but it's garbage for people who buy tickets.
I did that this year. I drove to Indianapolis.
Oh, no.
they were playing the Pacers on the second night of a back-to-back after they beat Golden State. And I got a buddy who lives in Cincinnati, so we drove down to Indianapolis to see them. And we knew Kyrie wasn't going to play because he got nicked up in that Warriors game. And we were sitting at our buddy's apartment getting ready to head over to the arena, and I get the Bleacher Report alert saying LeBron's not going to play. And it's
what a company man you are.
Yeah, I was going to go ESPN there.
No, the same thing happened to me actually. I took my son to his first game, and it was the one against the Blazers, and we get to the parking lot, and LeBron's not playing, and I'm like, "Oh, hey buddy, LeBron's not playing," and then of course Kyrie goes off for 55.
Wow.
And the Cavs win, so we got lucky. But point stands, you know.
I used to go to Indians games when I was younger. We would buy like the 10-pack of season tickets and drive up. And we'd start with the Saturday, and then we'd go to the Sunday game. And I remember Sandy Alomar would never play in that Saturday game because they were usually coming off a Friday night game, and that was always a bummer.
Yeah. No, and baseball is another one. You want to talk about, massaging your roster and really kind of laying people out and giving them days off. And I mean, if you're going to watch baseball for the stars, you could be sorely disappointed if your favorite player is a lefty and there's you just happen to go against a fourth starter who's a lefty because that dude's going to sit.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, pitching matchups, even you get a bad pitching matchup, and it could be a bummer of a game.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least, and none of us, I don't think either one of us has any inside information on this, but Chuck Booms gets fired.
Yeah.
What a weird story that is.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just saw the tweets today kind of come pouring in. I didn't know if he said something or if there was a comedy show. He just got fired out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean, I wondered if he said something. Well, not today.
Right.
No, I mean, and honestly, it's funny to me. Not funny, haha, but funny to me that to watch so many people dance on the grave of a guy they couldn't bear to listen to anyway.
Right.
Like it really bugs me. It bugs me. He drove me insane. I'm not one of his biggest fans. I recognize the fact that he's a funny guy. Like he's got funny sensibilities. His opinions used to drive me bonkers. I would scream at my radio at times listening to him, and I'd turn him off. But at the same time, to sit there and say, well, good, as somebody who never listened to him anyway. We've got so many choices, so many options, including this podcast, A to Z podcast, all these other things that we listen to. There's no need to take anything away from anybody, or enjoy it when something's taken away from somebody who likes something.
Right. No, and I wasn't a big fan of their show. To me, it just, and I don't know this for a fact, but and I think you've discussed this before with other guests you've had, but everything on their show kind of came out contrived and as an act, and I'll pick this side, you pick that side, and we'll fight for 4 hours about it. And that's just not.
Yeah, it was like First Take.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. And it's not fun because you don't believe that these people believe what they're actually saying. I think maybe a lot of the frustration, and at least this is something I understand because I listen to a lot of Cleveland sports radio, and it just seems like a missed opportunity to have that morning show, and they're the only local morning show in town, and have it be a First Take type of show. I think more people, at least I do, want more real discussion, more intelligent discussion, and that's not necessarily what that show was providing.
No, that's true. And the weirdest thing that goes on in Cleveland sports radio right now, if you ask me, is Rizzo's show, which is good. I really like it. I think it's one of the best sports talk show. I don't want to insult anybody because I like lots of sports talk shows.
Sure.
It's one of the best sports talk shows in Cleveland by a mile. It's one of the best ones. It's on from 9 to 1. It's
right.
Like the weirdest non-existing time slot.
Right.
That's not a real time slot.
Right. It's like it's a little too late to really be drive time in the morning, and it's too early to be even an afternoon show. You're right. It's
the best time slot in the world if your name is Rizzo.
Right, yeah. I mean, I work kind of weird hours just with my job, so I'll tune in usually around 9 and listen till around 11, but there will be some days where I'll come home and it will be like noon and I'll be getting ready to have lunch. I'm like, oh, Rizzo is still on. Like, no, you're right. That's a very the time slots in general in Cleveland are very odd. I think it's weird that Bull and Fox come on at 2 and then aren't off until 6.
Yeah, that is a weird one too, because usually your drive time would be 4 to 7.
Yeah, or 3 to 6.
Yeah, that's my great big fix for Cleveland Sports Talk Radio is that they need to reduce all these guys' shows to 3 hours each instead of 4 and 5 hours each, because they'd all be fresher and better, and you just can't fill that much time and be compelling. I don't think.
No, not at all. I mean,
and that's not a knock on those guys.
Right. I mean, how many times can you debate whether or not Kevin Love should be traded for Andrew Wiggins over? I mean, I guess the rationale is, very few people are listening for the entire time. I think that, your span is probably a half hour for the average listener. But to your point, yeah, you're right. They would be fresher. I think if you tune in, to Bull and Fox by around 5, I think even they would admit some of their arguments are just kind of worn down and tired.
Yeah. Well, and man, maybe if I was sitting in that seat with the business constraints and the different things going on and all right, well, I've got these contract values and I've got a budget that's X, maybe I would end up at the same conclusion. So it's really easy to play fantasy radio.
Yeah.
Which is fun. We like to play fantasy radio. The last time I played fantasy radio, I imagined a scenario where we'd get not political Trevisano, but sports talk Trevisano and Rizzo together.
Oh wow! I think the other fantasy matchup for me at least is having Goldhammer and Lima on the same show.
Oh man, you're absolutely right.
Would that not work?
That would be a monster.
That could be your the new primetime show. I do think, going back to Booms getting fired, I do think it is interesting. This is kind of the first move 92.3 has made in 4 years now?
Yeah, well they got through their 3-year. It's not quite 4 years. Yeah, they got through the initial 3-year period.
I think August is their anniversary.
It's amazing to me that station's been around for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like it's still new.
Right. No, but it's amazing to me that they haven't changed the lineup or changed the show really up until now. I mean, I'm not sure whether what WKNR did in the fall worked or if it was a good decision, but at least it was something new and something fresh.
And they're never afraid to mix it up.
No, not at all. In 92.3, I mean, I don't want to see anybody lose their jobs, but I think that's a station that would benefit from a new show or from a shift in lineup or something. Their lineup is so stale to me.
When I never understand why they don't cross-pollinate the shows at least once a week. Give me. Well, actually, we used to hear Phelps and Fox and Brown's postgame, which was great. Mm-hmm. But I always thought Baskin and Bull would be a great show, and just mix it up, play around, have a goofy week once a month.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they have enough talent and enough different personalities and people with different strong suits at that station. I mean, I would love to hear more Cavs talk. I think Anthony Lima is being criminally underused there for what he could bring from a basketball standpoint. I'd love to see him create some sort of A to Z type basketball podcast, because I really think, as far as people who can talk basketball, I think he's the best in the city there.
The last time I complimented Lima, somebody came at me and said it was embarrassing how in the tank I was for Lima. So I'm just going to say, no, we don't need so much Lima. We need less Lima.
Fair enough.
That way I won't get myself into trouble for being in the tank for my former high school compatriot.
Yeah. We shared a road trip to Indianapolis together with Zach Jackson, but 90% of the conversation revolved around Tinder.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this was awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on and talking about pretty much everything. I feel like you're the kind of guy I could throw anything at, and you'd figure out something to say about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an honor being on. I'd love to again sometime soon.
An honor. An honor.
I'm a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
I discovered it actually listening to you and Scott Robb, and that used to get me through my Mondays at my last job. So no, I'm definitely a huge fan of your guys' show, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually ran into Scott at the Cavs at Game 2 Cavs Bulls.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's just really great to catch. He's so much fun to catch up and talk with.
I bet.
I know. I don't know. Some people have that love-hate relationship with Scott, man, but I just love that guy. I love talking to him. He's great to talk to. So
I wish he tweeted more. Just every once in a while, he'll either fire off a tweet or he'll retweet something, and it'll just crack me up that's like his one appearance for the month.
yeah. Yeah, well, maybe it's good for his mental health and his other projects to not be so. Maybe it'll pay off once we get the next Scott Rabb book.
Yeah, I would definitely look forward to that.
Yeah. All right, Ben Axelrod, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ben Axelrod, BenAxelrod. And my link to my Bleacher Report bio's there, but you can pretty much find me all over the college football page on Bleacher Report.
Awesome stuff. Thanks so much. And everybody else out there, please tell a friend about the podcast. Let somebody in. Make them listen. And until next time, this has been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.
Waiting for next year.